Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Celebrate Every Step podcast. I am Alena, your host and resident clinical hypnotherapist, therapist, psychic medium, spiritual guide. As a lady told me at an expo this weekend, you do too much. And I said, well, actually, I just have very dynamic sessions that provide clients with exactly what they need. So, yeah, it kind of encompasses a lot of things. But I am here today with Charlotte of Capturing Yinz, and I absolutely adore Charlotte. So I am so excited for this conversation today. She is a photographer extraordinaire. She is a plant expert, Reiki practitioner, tarot reader, and does amazing candles that are infused with so much delicious scent, but also meaning and intention and sacredness, and offers classes and retreats and all of those things. And she is the absolute perfect person to have on with the candles and just everything else she does, because she infuses that sacredness and intention into everything that she does. And as you all know, that is what I am all about. So, welcome, Charlotte. Thanks for being here today.
Thanks, Alena, for having me. I'm excited. As always, we know it's going to be a good conversation.
Yes, I know. We were talking before we jumped on. We're like, well, we'll just see where this goes today. And I know it'll be a good one. So, I know that, in the description, I posted that you are part of Bloom, which is a psychic boutique in Indiana, PA. And for those that have listened to past episodes, Katie was on with Clarity with Katie. And so you are a part of that collective. So tell me about that and your role over there.
So it is a place that I know Katie, Kim, and myself, we've always individually kind of dreamed of a place to just show up with where you're at, who you are, no matter what spiritual side you come from, or even just where you're at in life. Um, for all three of us, we have different skill sets and passions that we're extremely in tune to, and we kind of all equal each other out. So whether you're coming in looking for something specific and you talk to me, I will quickly identify if I am the person to be able to jump in and lean in, and if I'm not, I'm gonna be like, I'm here to support you in the ways that I can, but let me loop in one of my friends.
Yeah.
And it's either going to be Katie or Kim, or even like if the three of us don't have that skill set, we have such an amazing network that will be like, hey, you should talk to this person or this person. And it's really just a place to show up as who you are. Even if you like, when we have open hours, I always tell everybody, if you just want to stop in and have a cup of tea and chat, guess what? That's what we're there for. Like,
Hmm.
you can show up in a pair of sweatpants and a hoodie with your hair in a bun, no makeup on, and just be you. And that's what we want. There's some days when we have open hours that you will catch me in that exact outfit, is no
Yeah.
makeup or like 2-day old eyeliner, and my hair in a bun. And it's just because like that's where I'm at. And while we do believe in like all things spiritual, and we all have different paths, so like for me, I grew up Roman Catholic. My mom is Mennonite. My dad does not believe in anything. But my dad is also a seer. He's been there in that world, which I did not know until a couple years ago when I.
Oh no, you froze. All right, let's hope she comes back here. And we will see. Oh, here she
There we
comes.
go.
There
Sorry.
you are.
It's
It's
that
okay.
boony internet.
Yes. Yeah, we
Oh,
both live kind of in the middle of nowhere. And so, yeah, we never quite know.
sometimes it's like, nope, bye.
Yeah.
But like for me with my background, my dad has seen spirits, most of his life, and I didn't know that until I started to see them. And I went to him and I was like, "Yo, Holmes, like, do you see this?" And he was like, "Yeah, but I see them this way."
Mm-hmm.
And my mom is still very into the typical religious Mennonite culture, and having had that experience where I got to experience that my senior year and understand that culture, as well as like Amish and the different essences of that, but also
Mm-hmm.
having my Roman Catholic background, has allowed me to meet people that are interested in the spiritual community or witchy things and help them kind of navigate resources. And for me also too, I really believe in the science behind everything. So I'm a wire. And like even
Mm-hmm.
for my full-time job, everybody's like, you ask a lot of the why questions, Char.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit about Bloom and like how I'm able to meet our people when they come in. But we have, like, as soon as you walk in, it's a giant plant room. There's plants for people to look at, purchase, things like that. And then as you kind of come into this space, you're greeted by one of us. And then we have another room that's filled with all the magical things, from candles to incense to different books, as well as tarot decks and stuff like that. But it's just a place to come chill and be present. And we have some really cool classes. Like Kim just did a sound bath this past weekend. It was really good and heartfelt. And then Katie does her classes as well. So it's just a cool space. And we just want people to show up.
Yeah.
Like they are.
And one of the things that I wanted to comment on that I was just talking about yesterday with actually two different clients, that whole idea of, showing up as you are. And I rolled out of my house not even realizing I didn't have my hair or makeup done yesterday. And I love doing my makeup. I love, the sparkly things. I always have jewelry on. But it just kind of was one of those mornings. And I got there and I was like, oh gosh, I didn't even do my hair or my makeup. And my client was like, I didn't even notice. And then we had a whole conversation about how at a certain point, I realized that I don't even see people's physical outward appearance first. I am so in touch with their spiritual body, with their soul, with their emotional essence that it was kind of a fairly recent awareness that I had that oftentimes I don't even notice how people look on the outside because I'm so in tune with that inner part. And we were kind of laughing because we both have tattoos, and I'm rolling up and with no hair and makeup, and he's like, I don't even notice that stuff either. And just that idea that so much of our culture I think does get sucked into judging that quote unquote book by its cover, where I would much rather be looking at people's hearts and how they're showing up in that way, whether it's for other people or for themselves, most importantly. And I think you share that too. I think we've laughed and joked about that, and so I like that you brought that up. Like, yeah, show up how you are, because when you're depressed, when you're in grief, getting the shower, looking nice, putting on the makeup, you just don't always feel up to that. And that's okay. I'm not going to judge where you are when you show up to your session. I actually want you to be comfortable and feel okay and just show up in the way that you need to. I think that's one of the reasons that I love the online sessions, because people don't feel that pressure to get ready to come see me. They will show up as they are in their home, no bra, no
Yep.
makeup, no hair, because it doesn't matter. It matters how comfortable you can get in that session, how deep we can go with your healing. So I love that you shared that part.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer in that. And I think that for me, I've seen not just myself, but my friends, the people that I consider my family. And there are days that, like, my one best friend, I absolutely adore her just because we've been through a lot of transitions together. And I'll FaceTime her and she'll be like, yeah, I haven't showered in like 5 days because like I can't. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
dude. And then like, so I go into, and I always ask her, I say, do you want me to help you find a solution or do you just want me to listen?
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes when she's like, I'd like to try to figure out why, I'm like, okay, let's talk about it. And then like next thing I know, I'm getting a text message that she's gotten a shower and she feels so much better. And I always tell her, the thing that I've learned most recently and how I've handled the being where I'm at is I've incorporated like my showers for my mental health as like I do them at the end of the day, and it is washing away any of the stress, the beliefs that I've put on myself or things like that. And it's also a check for my ego. And
Mm.
it's like, hey, this shit that you've made up throughout the day of like you can't or you shouldn't, or these things that like you're perfectly capable of, you got to let that shit go and like wash it away. It's not real, it's just fake. Like, let it go. And when I'm dealing with grief, because it hits me at the darndest times, is like
Mm-hmm.
in most inconvenient times
Yeah. Yep.
is like I address it and then I start talking to them and I'm like, okay, why did you pop up? Like, what do you got
Mm-hmm.
to tell me today?
Yeah.
Like, and so I always just, I try to tell her, I'm like, whenever you get hit with those things, don't push them down, address
Mm-hmm.
them. And if you got to talk about it, I'm here. And that's when I normally get that FaceTime that's like, hey, like, we got to sort this. And so
Yeah.
I
And
love that your sessions that are remote, like, that
yeah,
just makes me happy.
I know it's great. And I even have some local people that prefer online because then they can be more comfortable at home. There's a couple of things I want to touch on there. I also do that shower or bath at the end of the night where I am saying, in my mind, so that intention of letting go of any of the stress I've picked up, any of the stress that I've picked up from others, their pain, their emotions, imagining that water, washing that away, setting that intention of washing it away. I'll even say, I release what is not mine to carry. And then, really tapping into any of those tighter, tense places in my body. And just as that water is hitting there, okay, what is the message? What do I need to know? What am I holding there? And I love how you said about the ego. Is it a story that I told about myself during the day? Is it a self doubt that I let creep in? Is it, a message from my body like you need to sit up straighter, you need to stretch more, you need to move more? What is it? And then, so yeah, I love that. And that's that ritual, that's that intention, that's something that happens every single day already. So why not infuse that with meaning and purpose?
And that's important, I think, to look at too. And that's something, I've I've talked to you about a couple times too, is like, what am I doing that's serving myself
Mm-hmm.
and not others? And I think for me, I grew up as a caretaker for a parent
Mm-hmm.
that, had some issues. And I have always taken on the role of having to anticipate everybody around me,
Yeah.
what their needs are, whether that's emotional, physical, or what have you. And I've never focused on Shar and
Mm-hmm.
like what Shar needs or wants. And so I think for me is finding those little moments in the day that I can incorporate those check-ins. Like when I make my drink in the morning, like when I go through and put in each step, I'm putting in intention for the day and like bringing myself back to the ground. When I walk from the house to my she shed, like I try to walk barefoot even when it's snowing, like
Mm-hmm.
is a way to say like, okay, this is me grounding all my worries. I'm walking into work today as who I am in this moment, and I'm gonna get my shit done so I can go do the rest of my life. And it's a struggle because it's a cycle that sometimes you get pulled back into of like going into that anticipation of everybody,
Yeah.
but it's being in that constant check with yourself of like the shower at the end of the day, but like there's little milestones throughout the day of like, here's where
Mm-hmm.
I'm at, here's what I'm doing. And sometimes I do have to step away from work and just be like, this is I'm super grateful for my boss of if I need to take 30 minutes to go for a walk outside and just put on a playlist on my phone, because that is the one thing I love doing. I curate playlists for every emotion that I'm feeling.
Mm-hmm.
So like I will go into my Apple Music, pick a playlist, and then I will sometimes just like walk out in my yard and just lay down. And
Mm-hmm.
like my dad has come out and been like, "What are you doing?" And I'm just like, "I can't adult today. Like I don't have it in me."
I
And
need Mother Earth to support me right now.
I was like, "I need all the contact."
Yes.
And then like we have an old oak tree up at the top of our driveway, and I've been trying to like make it a point that like when I get so like I feel in my body that I'm just so tight and like laying in the grass is just not working for me because I can't set my mind. I will go up there and just hug it. And it's like right at the road, and my
Mm.
neighbors drive by. They all know I'm weird. Like, but like that tree has been on our property for forever, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And my great grandma, when she bought our property, that was part of it. And so, as her being one of my guides, that's my way also to connect with her.
Yeah.
And it's also conveniently right next to the foundation of the old barn, which is where
Mm-hmm.
everything was.
Yeah. Yeah.
But for me, it's always about bringing it back to like basically the foundation, the
Mm-hmm.
roots,
Yeah.
and Mother Earth, and just being like, okay, I need help, please, and
Absolutely.
acknowledging that I need the help. But yeah, that's
Yeah, I think it's so important to look at, that's layer upon layer of intention. You're grounding on Mother Earth. You're asking for support. You have music that is supporting that process. You're looking at the foundation, at the roots. And I've been working on my book, and that is a section. So in the book, it's broken into the actual death that I have experienced in my story with them. And then I'm looking at the blessings and the lessons, and then the exercise that goes along with that particular story. And for my brother's death, one of the exercises that I put in there is about music and how important music is for transmuting our energy. And exactly that. Like, I have the same thing. I have playlists that I listen to when I'm sad. I have playlists when I need that self-confidence boost. I have playlists when I'm angry, and paying attention to that. And then, when we're talking about the science, singing, humming also soothes that vagal nerve, which soothes the nervous system. And so that's why else music is so powerful. Not only does it change our brain waves and even our cells within our body, but it's also soothing the nervous system. So again, layer upon layer of intention and purpose in what you are doing. And, sometimes people just intuitively do these things. And then after the fact, you find out like, oh, there's actually science to back up why this works, why this feels good. So I love that.
Yeah, and I think it's important too to like just because it works for one person doesn't mean it's going to work for you.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes, like, I always chuckle because, like, I have friends that can sit there and go into full meditation mode with just like low hertz music and like, not me. There is
Mm-hmm.
no way in heck I can ever get myself in that full meditative state from like low hertz and that's it. So for me, it's one of those things. And like, I always joke with my one friend who, like, her and I've kind of been on the spiritual awakening together, is for me, it's one specific playlist. There's like 10 songs on it. And when I get into my wubs, which is like what I call them, I don't really know what everybody else calls them, but it's like my wubs. And that's when I know I can like be in between and really get those downloads that I need and release the things that I need to release. And don't get me wrong, sometimes I can try and it just doesn't work because my body is so
Mm-hmm.
tight from everything else that like I can't disassociate what I felt throughout the day. And I have to be like, no, wait, I gotta like if I can't get into that state with these 10 songs, like I know something's wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's
So
address
then it's that reevaluation, like, okay, what do I actually need in this moment? And I just rewrote that this morning when I was working on my book of, it was like, please keep an open mind on listening to my journey, and then keep an open mind with all of these modalities, because at different times we need different things. So look at everything, and then that way you have a lot of tools to pull from when you get that grief. I call it the grief gut punch. And obviously I'm writing about grief, but it can be anything that comes up, that gut punch, that we sometimes feel throughout the day, whether it's grief or, work or relationships or anything at all. Okay, what do I need to tap into to move through this and not just stuff it down,
Yep.
because I think most of us have learned to stuff things down or to ignore it or numb out from it. And I am obviously a big proponent of actually acknowledging things, addressing things, and moving through them. So I love that you have that level of self awareness to pay attention, like, okay, this is not working. So what else do I need to do right now?
And I think it's important. I think what you say in your book about just because you have a modality doesn't mean that you have to use it, because it might not be the right one at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's important for people to know that. Like, it's okay to look at something different.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and that's exactly it too. With our son dying, what I had used my previous 39 years, um, didn't quite cut it. When you lose a child, it's kind of an all hands on deck. It's like, okay, what is every single healing modality out there? And it's all on the table because holy crap, you just need to evaluate everything and anything that might bring awareness, relief, just whatever to help you feel better. So yeah, it's valuable to know that and know where to reach out to if you don't know what's going to work for you.
and I think that you sharing your journey with that has helped a lot of people realize that it's okay to talk about
Mm-hmm.
all of this, and it's okay to look and reset. I mean, be using all those tools that you had for all those years and coming to this point and being like, oh shit, like it's time to reset
Yeah.
because it just doesn't work. And
Mm-hmm.
it's okay to acknowledge that, and it's okay to reset. And you know, I'm a firm believer in we get served kind of what we need in a
Mm-hmm.
moment in terms of modalities, and looking at the modalities that we're getting, brought to us through research or friends or what have you to handle a situation is so important. And that's why I think having people in your corner is so important. Like, I look at the transition that I'm currently going through, and having you, Katie, Kim, like in my corner has been a huge help.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just been one of those things that like I sit back and I'm like, holy shit, like if I wouldn't have made the leap a year and a half ago, I wouldn't have these people in my corner to help me
Yep.
navigate this. And like y'all have brought different modalities to me because of your life lessons and
Yeah.
because of the things that you've been through. And I think that that's part of why we're kind of here, is to help each other just navigate. And it's a great, to me, it's a great feeling to have each other, but it truly genuinely sucks sometimes, the stuff that we have to go through to be able to be there for each other.
Yeah. 100% correct. It is that it's like, okay, here we go again. Here's another life lesson. And then the funny part that happens for me is, I'll be in session with a client and a very similar or very parallel or whatever experience will come up and it's like, oh, that's why I went through that in, 1985 for this moment right here in 2023, and so it is really wild. And I know that, it's written in my stars, written in my charts that I am here to experience things and then to share my story with the purpose of helping other people. And it's not that I think I know everything or have experienced everything. It's simply like, okay, here is my story. Here is how I have navigated things. So let's find what works for you in your life path, in your life story, and, where you are in this moment. And yeah, I love that we have all come together in this group, and that we're all willing to show up in that way because it is really beautiful. And it's definitely not the norm because yeah, most people are kind of just like pushing things down, ignoring them, like we're not going to talk about that, brushing things under the rug. So for sure it is not the norm to be kind of out and talking about all of these things. And it's not always easy to put yourself out there like that. It is very vulnerable, and can feel very scary at times, but I know my why, and I know the purpose is bigger than me. So if people cast doubt or, question, or, even you get trolls sometimes, it doesn't matter, because my why is helping people. And I know, because people come to me and send me messages and emails of, this one thing you said shifted my whole perspective. And that's beautiful. So, yeah, I'm glad you're showing up for not only yourself, but for the people that make their way to you too.
Yeah, it's just, and that's the thing of why I kind of like love that we do these expos and things like that, is because it puts people in our orbits that we might not get to
Mm-hmm.
otherwise. And like, that was the one thing I was like, I've been throwing back and forth. I was like, because I know I'm supposed to be entering like a hermit mode, and like, that was one of the things that I was talking to my one best friend, which like anytime you're at something with me, you'll see her with me, because like she's the reason why I've made it through a lot of stuff
Yeah.
with keeping my business moving. But like, her and I were talking, and I told her, I said, dude, I think I'm like entering like a hard hermit mode. And she's like, what does that mean? And I was like, well, I don't know, but we're gonna figure this out. And she's like, okay, I'm here for it. I was like, all right, I'm indecisive on if I'm here for it yet or not.
Yeah.
But also to, to yours and my point, of a couple previous conversations, is like, there's come a point where I've had to realize that it's okay for me to have passions and hobbies that I don't share with others.
Yes.
And so, while I'm always learning, I mean, if I could show you the bookshelf in my house, it is so many books, and like, I love learning, but at the same time, it's like I've always taken what I've learned and tried to teach it to people that
Mm-hmm.
want to learn. Obviously, like, I'm not going to share it for, no reason, but like, at the end of the day, it's like, it's okay if I keep this knowledge to myself in this time, because I know, for me, for my purpose, it's to help people transition. It's to help people understand like their trajectory. And I think, part of what I've struggled with as an adult in the last probably like 5 years, since I've really started to like not push down what I was feeling called to do, was just show up as I am in that moment. And if I'm in hermit mode, it's okay,
Mm-hmm.
because, I'm still there and I'm still showing up for people, but I'm showing up in a way that my energetic level can show up, and they
Yeah.
understand that.
Yeah. And that's such a good point of, and hermit can look different. It can be maybe just one event a month or one class. It can be a pulling back of what you're sharing with the world. And yeah, that is okay. And I think the important side of that, though, is also recognizing that, what level do I need of that? My business is clients. So I'm seeing clients pretty much every single day of the week. And, we're working on big deal stuff. We're working on past traumas. We're working on significant emotional pain. We're going to past lives. We're doing all of these things, which would drain a lot of people. But for me, it really does fill me up. So, then I'm looking at like, okay, what do I need to support myself every single day, instead of, these phases? And, sometimes it is more intensive hermiting, not doing the extra stuff while still being able to show up for people each day, so I like that you're looking at that and really evaluating that, because you have a full-time job, and you're doing this stuff on top of that. So yeah, that's going to look differently for you than it might look for somebody else. So I'm so happy that you pay attention to that. Let's talk about your plants and how you came into that aspect of your kind of, because it's not just your business, it's what feeds your soul. So, yeah, let's talk about your plants.
So, oh gosh, my plant obsession. I've always loved gardening. My grandma, who, like, my Instagram account that I share plant stuff with, like when I have the energy to, with like my gardening fails and successes.
Mhm.
Um, it all came from my grandma, and I remember growing up, she used to have a garden in the back of her house, and after a couple years, you know, because I was the last baby born in my dad's family, because my dad is actually the baby in his family. And so my dad had me when he was like 35. So my Grammy would have been like mid to late 70s at that
Mhm.
point.
Mhm.
Um, and so she was getting up there. My papa had died like a year or two after I was born. So she didn't have like the extra help to like keep a big garden going. So when I was in like my probably middle school age, she just transitioned to like the front of the yard garden and some porch stuff. But she would always include me and always
Mm.
share like why she did stuff and stuff like that. And then as I got older, my mom, she would try to have a garden, and my dad loved landscaping. Like the front of our house where I grew up was immaculate. Like there was not a bush or tree out of place, but it was all stuff that was like perennials, and it was good for like the insects and birds and like all that stuff.
Mhm.
He was very thoughtful in how he put together our landscaping. And then once we moved up to our camp when he got sick, it just kind of turned into he planted 5 million hostas, which I absolutely hate hostas. Do not like them at all. But the front part of my house has hostas, and then along the porch on one flower bed, because I ripped the rest of them out on the back side of the house. Um, but my dad's always encouraged me, you know, plant what you're going to plant. And it started with sunflowers and a
Mm.
monstera plant. The sunflowers were the outside gardening, and a monstera was the inside plant. And then it went to an alocasia regal shield, which I still have both of them. The monstera is about 10 foot tall now,
Oh my gosh.
after like 3 or 4 years. And the regal shield, she just put out her first baby, but she's just like living life,
Yeah.
and she's on the porch now. But plants to me, they represent so much, not just the family aspect or like the lineage behind, you know, for me planting and gardening is, um, but also too, it's a great way to, for me at least, I share my worries, my wants, my wishes with plants.
Mhm.
Like when I'm out in the garden, like behind me, I have raised beds that are veggies and dahlia bulbs, because I didn't, and I'm learning, like, I completely learned that whenever I bought my tubulars this year from the one company, I ended up like, I ordered two thinking I was just getting like two, and then I know tubulars as they grow each year, when you pull them up, they'll have babies on them.
Mhm.
So I just thought I was getting those two, and then next year I would have some babies. No, they came with the babies on them. So I had a surplus of dahlias that I'm like, I don't know
Mhm.
where I'm putting these things. So they're like they're in my veggie gardens now too. But I was, you know, as I planted them, I was planting the things that were weighing heavy on me. And
Mm.
I was like, you know, I'm releasing this back into Mother Earth. Like, I want to be able to, as this grows, to release and work through what's coming up. Like,
Mhm.
I don't ever expect that when I return something, you know, to the universe, that it's just going to magically be solved. I know I'm always going to have to work on it.
Yeah.
And so for me, the representation of planting that worry or that thought or even that wish and bringing it back as it grows to work on it, and like kind of peeling the dead leaves off as the leaves die as they grow, is like a way for me to kind of think about that. And it's a good way, like when I go out each night to water, I'm like, you know, thinking and just processing. And that's when I talk to my guides, which my Grammy's one of them. And sometimes, like, if I notice something with like one of the plants, I'll be like talking to her, and you know, I'll think like it'll come to me and be like, oh, why don't you try this? And
Yep.
like, and I know that that's her way of like popping things down to me too, is like sometimes I'll just sit there in silence, and um I have rocks like all in between the beds, and I'll just sit on the rocks with the hose just like shooting up over, and like as I'm sitting there I'm like pondering, and it's just a moment of peace. And
Mhm.
I only ever want people when they have plants in their house, or in their garden, or if they're afraid to garden, to just try
Yeah.
and realize that, you know, with each dead plant comes, you know, a new lesson. And like I have one in this window that I burnt the plant.
Mm.
I stuck it in the sun and it got burnt. So she's in here recuperating.
Mhm.
And they do change the energy within a house. I feel like, you know, depending on the plant. And like everybody laughs at me because when they come to my house, they find rows of Jerichos all through my house.
Yeah.
And it like I have one in my office too. And like for me, when I open those guys up, I open them up, you know, whether I'm working on magic work or what have you. But I also open them up sometimes when I'm journaling, because with them being the resurrection flower, or the false resurrection flower, I believe that when they open up, they're bringing in a new perspective. They're
Yeah.
bringing in that new energy, because they can go years without water, and you go around and water it, and then it blooms back into this gorgeous green, lush plant. And it's just amazing to see that happen. And I think of how shallow their roots are, that it's okay to be mobile, and it's okay to adjust and shift and all of these things. And that's why I love plants, is because like each one has such a unique story and relatability to what we could be going on in our lives and working with that plant. And like the thing that's holding my phone up currently is a prickly pear cactus. And I don't own succulents or cactuses because I normally murder them. And so I bought this one. I was out getting some baskets, and I like looked at it, and I was like, homie, you're coming home with me. For what? I don't know why, but there's like a lesson behind it. And he's been just chilling. And you know, I was sitting on the porch the other day journaling, and I was like thinking of the way words hold weight. And the way words can be so sharp and hurtful.
Yeah.
And I then started thinking about how this thing stabbed me a couple times, like in the process of getting it into the shed.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. But I was then, like, as I started to process, I was like, okay, on the outside, they have all these thorns. But on the inside, when you look at, you know, prickly pear cactuses, a lot of people, they use them for medicinal purposes. They use them for medicine and different things like that. And it made me relate back to myself and how I've always portrayed myself, and realize that it's okay to have a shift in that. So like plants are just amazing as a whole.
Well, and this is why I love you, because not, you know, like that perspective is not a perspective that everybody holds, where they are looking at the plant and the messages that that plant is offering to us. And one of my very favorite decks is the Plant Spirit Oracle. And my friend Dana that created that, it's the exact same thing. It is like, yeah, each one of these plants that is out here is offering us lessons, messages, and, you know, medicinal and beneficial properties. And so I love that you are tapped into that. And I absolutely love the planting your intentions, returning to earth, the things that are bothering you, that are plaguing you. Because, yeah, you know, when we're gardening, when we're washing dishes, you know, those kind of things that could be very mundane can be such a transformative time if we are in that flow state, if we are in that contemplative state, because that is exactly it. You know, gardening is your connection to the other side. And so you get into that flow state and you get those messages from your grandma. You are tapped into the messages from the plants. And, you know, so whether it's plants, whether it's the trees, whether it's the animals that come into the yard, you know, it's just such a beautiful thing to honor God, spirit, the universe, nature, you know, whatever words we want to attribute to those aspects. Yeah, it's just living life within that flow and within that place of everything has a purpose and everything has a meaning. So absolutely love that.
Yeah, it's taken a bit to get there and realize like that was the purpose, but once it hit, it was like, oh wow, this is why.
Yeah.
And it was I actually stopped asking why, and then I got my why.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Okay, so I want to talk about the expo. So Charlotte will be part of the expo on June 24th in Punxsutawney, PA, with the rest of the collective with Bloom Psychic Boutique. And so I know you're going to do tarot readings, you're going to do Reiki, you're going to have your dressed candles, and your houseplants. So do you want to talk about any of those things that you'll be offering at the expo?
That's pretty much where we're at. Katie and myself will be doing tarot, and Kim will be doing Reiki.
Okay.
And then as a whole, we'll have some crystals, some dress candles. Obviously, we're going to be bringing up some houseplants. And then also too, we will have, I'm trying to think what else Katie and I were like just talking about. Oh, we did get in some really, really cool, like witchy planty, like t-shirts / merch. That like, I've just been like so excited for them because one of them's a Miss Frizzle shirt, and it just like makes me happy because there's so much magic and science, and I was so excited to like get that shirt and share it out with people. But in terms of services, I think that it's important to, anytime that you attend a fair, to think about, you know, when you're walking around, and I always tell everybody when you walk into a fair, you want to have your protection up because there's just so much energy in there, and you can sometimes get sick from it. Like I know, you know, the first time I went into a fair and read, I got so sick afterwards because I didn't protect myself. I didn't go through like my normal ritual before I went into like my readings. That as an attendee, I think it's important to go in with your protection up and tell yourself that any energy that you feel within there is, you know, other people's to keep, and yours is within yourself, and you're able to identify those. But as you're walking around to find the practitioners that you resonate with, I think it's important to allow yourself to feel what you feel when you're around them and pick based on that, because each of us are different. Like I honestly look at how all three of us within the space do things, and we all do them different.
Yeah.
For me, I always, you know, typically bring my readings back. They start with fire, like a candle. And then as I go through, you know, that's the one consistent to keep me connected. And then from there, you know, as I work with people, I'm able to help them kind of just look at what messages they need to hear, you know, and talk to them through both mediumship and tarot and kind of bring the picture together. And then I know with like Katie, she does her mediumship and tarot together too, but she does hers a little bit differently. And then Kim with Reiki, I mean, that's just a whole different level. I always tell everybody that, yeah, I do Reiki, but I will always refer to Kim for Reiki before myself, because that is 110% her specialty and where, you know, she lives. Whereas like for me, it comes back to like tarot and candle magic, like every time.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's what we'll have at the fair, and I'm excited to be there again. I mean, the last one was a blast, and I loved getting to meet everybody that came through as attendees, but also the practitioners, because I learned from people that show up.
And me too. Yeah.
It's just amazing.
Yeah. And, you know, those are some really good points. And yeah, I love expos for that very reason, because I'm bringing together the best of the best. I'm bringing together people that I believe in, that I want to share with the world. And it's why I did do these interviews too, because, you know, not only do I want people to meet you in person, but I want them to be able to meet each of the vendors in these interviews, so they can hear how amazing they are and already get a feel for their energy and who they're drawn to. And, you know, so I love that you talked about making sure that you are protecting your energy. And exactly like you said, you know, I use Angel Michael and call in his blue light of protection to help me observe and no longer absorb energy. So that's a practice that I do every single morning because I am such an empath. But, you know, I will also be setting the energy and intentions of the space. So, you know, any negativity is going to be cleansed when they come through that door. Anything that comes through that door will be for the highest and greatest good of all. So there will be, you know, no negativity, no negative energies and entities that are welcome. So I'm very, very particular about that. I even do that throughout this whole, you know, all of the months leading up to it, where I am every time I do an interview, every time I'm sending out an email, making a post, it is let the people that most need this see this. Let them hear what they need to hear and experience what they need to experience. And yeah, just really being very intentional about not only the vendors that came, but the attendees that will come, through those doors day of as well. So I love that you brought that up.
Yeah, I think it's important, and it was something I had to learn in time.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's always a good nugget to share with people.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being here today. And thank you all for watching and listening. And if you have any questions or feedback or anything at all, you will be able to find Charlotte's information and my information in the description and in the show notes. So thank you all. And thank you, Charlotte, for being here.
Thanks, Alena, for having me.
Absolutely.